Alright, so it looks like I'm at least starting off this. I wasn't sure if. Yeah, let me check the audio here. Anyway, the audio should be good. I just heard myself over the mic. Okay. Anyway, I'm starting off this stream by myself. Maybe somebody will show up. I don't know. But the topic for today's stream is once again going to be objective versus subjective. And I'm not just talking about objective versus subjective. Morality, apparently people don't understand the concept of either of those words. And that's where all this confusion comes in, because that's just, or at least the people that I've been talking to are complete morons, and they keep making the argument that something is objectively subjective or is subjectively objective, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's like, they might as well be saying you're correctly incorrect or you're incorrectly correct. It's the same. Now, they don't put the two words together like that. What they'll do is they will use substitutes and still make that same argument and act as if, oh. So, I had somebody argue that murder isn't evil, murder is wrong. And I'm like, since when is evil and wrong not the same concept? Like, evil encompasses more than wrong, but evil and wrong are both bad actions. If you do something that is wrong, you can't also say, well, it's wrong, but it's good. Those two concepts are opposed to each other. You can't do something, like if you were taking a test, and the question was, what's 1 plus 1, and you answered 5, you would be wrong, and you would not pass that test if that test only had that one question on it. But that's what they're saying. Oh, well, it's wrong, but you can still pass. I'm like, no, you're mixing words, and you're replacing words, and you're acting like you're not making the statement that it's objectively subjective. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Something cannot be objective and subjective at the same time, and you can use different words, you can substitute all you want, and it doesn't mean that you can get A to equal not A. Objective and subjective are diametrically opposed. They are a binary. Something that is subjective cannot be objective. Something that is objective cannot be subjective. I'm going to illustrate a couple examples of this. The color green is objective. The color is a wavelength of light at a certain wavelength of light that produces the color green. You cannot subjectively say that wavelength doesn't exist. It's a wavelength of light that you have. Your opinion doesn't change what it is. Now, you can have your favorite color be green. That doesn't mean that the color green is subjective. The color green is still objective. Favorite, that is subjective. It's a subjective concept. Favorite song, favorite movie, favorite color, favorite flavor of ice cream. Those are all subjective because there's no way to say, this is the absolute best flavor of ice cream. There is no best flavor of ice cream. There is no best movie ever made. There is no best song ever written or recorded or whatever. There is no best color. There's no, well, this is the objective order of colors in the rankings. You know, this is color number 1, color 2, color. There is no rankings of that. Now, you may see rankings of best movies of all time, and you will see two people make two completely different lists. Oh, maybe that's because the best movie of all time is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's what subjective means. It's personal. That list that you're looking at is that one individual or that one group's opinion on which are the best movies, or which is the favorite color, or which is their best color of ice cream, their favorite color or favorite flavor of ice cream, not favorite color of ice cream. Their favorite color or their favorite flavor of ice cream. I'm stumbling over my words. But something that is objective is something, even if one person disagrees, or even if half the people disagree, there is a correct, or it exists regardless of those other people's opinions. And I'm going to hopefully try to illustrate that with some props here. So the first prop I have is some dollar bills. So I shouldn't have to do this, but this is the level of the people that I'm talking to, like Chair and Sparky. Okay. 2 plus 2 is objectively 4.
Yeah.
Objective. You know how you can tell it's objective? Because you get 2. $1, $2. That's 2. $1, $2. Hey, look. That's 2. Put them together. That's $4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Sesame level shit. Objectively, $4. You cannot take $2 and $2 and put them together and get $3. You cannot get $5. You cannot get $1. You cannot, because there are 4 of them.
I'm pretty sure if you get that vampire from Sesame Street to explain it to them, I think they will understand.
Yeah. So 2 plus 2 is objectively 4. You cannot say that I had a math problem and the problem was 2 plus 2 and some kid answered 3. Math is subjective. What?
Yeah.
Well, this kid went on to write a 3-page paper about how 2 plus 2 equals 3. Therefore, math is not objective. 2 plus 2 is not objective because somebody disagrees. No.
Yeah.
No. It's the same, but that's what they're arguing. They're saying murder, some people think it's okay to murder. Therefore, you can't say murder is objectively evil or murder is objectively wrong. No. No, you can say it's objectively wrong. The people who think it's okay, they are incorrect. It doesn't mean that murder is, it's just your opinion on whether murder is bad or not. That's the argument they're making. And it's like, it's in that same sentence, you cannot say someone is incorrect for saying that 2 plus 2 equals 3.
Yeah.
That's the argument they're making. So that's why I'm trying to use physical stupid props.
Yeah. Like, certain aspects of what we find to be right and wrong could be considered subjective in a few areas, like is an inmate getting executed by the state morally wrong? Is abortion morally wrong? Some things like that is an example. But there's other things, like you said, murder and rape and things like that are objectively wrong because it does objectively harm somebody.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There are disagreements on that. And the reason there's a disagreement is because we know one is better than the other, and we're trying to figure out which one is better than the other. Some are saying, for abortion, people are saying, abortion is immoral, we should not do it. And do they just leave it at that? Or do they provide reasons? Oh, they're providing an argument for why they consider that to be better than abortion. Why they consider no abortion better than abortion. If it was subjective, they would just say it was, hey, abortion and not abortion are equal. They're both equally moral. That would be subjectivity. You can have your abortion, I can have my no abortion. There's no problem. No, there is a problem because we know one of those two has to be the best option. Both of those can't exist simultaneously. Like, my favorite movie can be Fight Club, and your favorite movie can be whatever, I don't know. Just your favorite movie can be Five Dongs and Freddy. That's your favorite movie could be that. Those things can exist simultaneously. Like, I can have my favorite, you can have your favorite. Those don't contradict. I cannot have my abortion is immoral while somebody else has their abortion is moral, because those would contradict. One of those has to be superior to the other. They both can't exist at the same time because they're directly opposed to one another. Which is why we argue about them. Which is why we say, hey, this is superior for these reasons. Just because two people disagree on which one is the correct or the more moral option doesn't mean that there is no moral option. But that's what subjectivity means. It means there is no correct answer. Because if someone asks you, what is your favorite, there is no correct answer.
Yeah.
They could ask you what your favorite color is, and you could say the number 5, and that's not incorrect. It's stupid. It makes no sense. It is not incorrect. And I'm not using that to justify my mistake on Twitter. But you can say something that isn't... What is your favorite movie? Oh, well, I don't watch movies, but my favorite book series is Lord of the Rings. You could answer that, and people are like, oh, that's a legitimate answer. But there is no correct answer. If something is objective, there is a correct answer.
Yeah. Yeah, just in certain circumstances with certain debates and discussions, there are certain things that are like seen as, there might not be an objective answer. Like when I mentioned the.
Yeah, no. So what I think so there is an objective answer. We don't know what that. It's a question mark.
Yeah,
it's like when you're looking at algebra. X plus y equals 25. X is a number. Y is a number. We don't know what. So it's solved for x. X is a question mark. We know that a number plus another number equals 25. We may not know what x is. Just because we haven't solved for x doesn't mean that x is a figment, or x can be 10. Well, if y is 16, there's no way x can be 10 because then it wouldn't equal 25.
Yeah.
It's a big question mark because we're trying to solve for x. But saying it's a question mark, it's not known yet, doesn't mean that there is no answer. That's the point I've been trying to hammer home for months now, and it just seems to shoo.
Yeah, I
mean, we don't know yet, so therefore we can't know. Then why are we bothering to figure it out?
Yeah, like I used to be this huge proponent of the idea that morality was subjective, because it seemed like a lot of things like we didn't like. It was based off of things like there's certain things we don't necessarily know if it is right or wrong, and that was where I would come from. There was a guy who I was talking to, who you remind me a lot of actually, but
sorry for him.
I've never seen his face, so anyway. Yeah. We were talking about certain things like abortion and...
I wasn't talking about looks, but thanks for that dig as well.
I didn't even make... Freudian slip. But yeah, we were just talking about various topics, and I can't remember what his point was about morality. He's like, he couldn't be subjective, or else if it is, then if you think morality is subjective, I think he said something along the lines of you could not argue against what you would consider a moral act if you're saying morality is subjective. Like, you couldn't argue,
you can't say that what other people do is immoral.
Yeah, like you couldn't argue. You can't argue that drone striking brown kids in the Middle East is horrible if you think that morality is subjective. I know that's like an extreme example, but I think it's one that works. And
so if we bring this back to the idea of a favorite, someone's favorite movie could be Hostel, and you could say, "Oh, but Hostel's a terrible movie. It's just gore. It's it's torture porn. It's just how much gore and like it's all fake blood. And if you're thinking about it, like there's no real story. It's just people being tortured and murdered and dying, and like it's not even intelligent. It's just splattering the screen with But that doesn't, and you can argue and reason with them, and they're still like, no, it's my favorite. And you can't say, but no, it is not your favorite movie. It cannot possibly be your favorite. No, if it's their favorite, it's their favorite. So if you were arguing that morality was subjective, and somebody was raping a child, and you could be like, no, you can't do that. That's immoral. And they could be like, no, it's moral. I'm doing it. It's the same. If it was subjective, what you're saying about their action is the same as you saying, no, you can't have your favorite movie be Hostile.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Okay, you can say that all you want. It's not going to change their behavior. It's
Yeah.
only if it is objective. You're like, no, you are incorrect. You are doing something that is against morality. Oh, well, now you have something. Now you've got something. If it's objective,
Yeah.
then they are counter to that standard.
Yeah. I also think you got to take like people got to take into account like a standard they would use to determine how it is objective or subjective. Like if like harming a child, like you said, like that does a negative to a person, that is causing them
Yes.
objective harm. Like if I were to
Yeah.
shoot Reagan, like that obviously would harm that would harm Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
It's objectively bad, and it does cause people
Yes, you
harm.
can see you can
Yeah.
we can go through, okay, that would cause this and this and this and this, and that would ultimately be looking at all the factors of all what it would the chain reaction of events negative. We could objectively see that everything put together is a net negative. That's why you don't do that. That's why we avoid those actions, because the overall outcome is a net negative.
Yeah. Like in certain cases where like people argue if the ends justify the means, it's like that could be a whole can of worms on its own if you're trying to
Yes.
justify it. I can't really think of an example of like the ends just. I mean, okay, so let's say your wife's pregnant, she's about to give birth in the car,
Yeah.
and you're racing to the hospital. It is a sticky situation because you're trying to get there so she gets proper care for
Yeah.
childbirth. But you do put a risk in harming, like you get in a
Yeah.
car accident, you can get
So,
pulled over, things like
yeah.
that.
Well, that is, even though the intention is good, the action in that situation that you're describing is immoral, because you are putting your life at risk, the mother's life at risk, the child's life at risk, as well as every other driver on the road. It's not just my child and wife are at risk because if I don't get to the hospital, one or both of them may die. So I can speed and possibly crash into a bus full of students. Well,
Yeah.
not only did you kill the people you were trying to save, you killed yourself, and you also killed a bunch of other children. That that risk is not yours to take. It is not your. You don't have the authority to put the life of your a wife and child, or the mother of your child and child,
Yeah.
ahead of the safety of other people. That it's not. You don't get to say no. We are superior. We're gonna take the risk. I'm okay with the possibility of crashing into a bus full of students and killing everybody in the process, if it means that they have a chance of surviving if that doesn't happen. You don't get to make that call, because you're saying that you get a say over what happens to the bus full of students, what happens to your wife and child, but that's not your call to make. You are obligated to drive safely on the roads in order to ensure that you aren't violating the lives of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that means a risk to yourself. I'm trying to. So it sounds a lot like a philosophical dilemma that's presented. So there's a situation where there is a bus on rails, or a trolley on rails, or a train on rails, or something on rails, and it is going too fast and it's going to crash. Now there's a switch in front of you, and you could flick the switch and save them, or you could leave it as is and they're going to crash. If you flick the switch, instead of going into the wall, they get diverted to safety. Okay, and then most people answer, okay, flip the switch. You're doing the moral thing, you're saving people, no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Now you escalate the situation. Okay, same situation, train on tracks, it's going to crash. You can't reach the lever. But there is a rather rotund individual that is standing on the edge of the platform, and if you were to push them off, they would land on the switch, flick it, and save everybody on the train. However, the fat individual would die in the process. It's more, right?
Yeah.
Killing one to save many.
Yeah.
Would it be
like
yeah.
Yeah,
The
like if you're or if there's like for instance 5 people like for somehow are tied down to a track. By the time you get the fifth one free, it's you won't be able to get out of the way, so you give your life to save other lives.
oh yeah,
Like
sorry.
yeah,
That's I missed the step. Yeah, that's in between. So there's the
yeah.
sacrificing yourself to save the train, and then sacrificing someone else to save the train. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like whether like
same scenario.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a similar scenario and I think it is more moral than letting everyone
yeah,
die. Like
yeah. So it would be more moral to sacrifice yourself to save everyone else.
yeah.
Like, but if it was your life at risk and you would have to sacrifice yourself to save someone else, no one can fault you for not saving that other person. That's right. It's your choice at that point.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, I'm gonna take that person doesn't have a choice on whether they live or die. I'm making the choice that I'm gonna die in their stead. That's admirable to do if you make that choice. However,
Yeah.
someone cannot tell you you need to step in front of that train so that way this other person can live. That's nobody
Yeah.
else's choice. That's not even the other person's choice.
As well as this is people call it a moral gray area is to like people helping others. For instance, there was a man drowning in some lake or something in Florida and these teenagers watched him drown. Now a lot of people are saying it was morally abhorrent, they should have stepped in. I don't think there's I thought there was a Good Samaritan law out there, but apparently that's just on Seinfeld, not actually a real thing.
There are Good Samaritan laws in certain areas. However, I don't know of any of the Good Samaritan laws that require you to risk your life. Because this is something... Cops are not obligated to do this.
Yeah.
Police officers and firemen, not obligated by law to risk their lives to save other people. And yet that's one of the responsibilities of their job. That to me that seems seems a tad idiotic because technically that's what they signed up to do. Like in the military you are obligated to put your life at risk to save other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is that's why for desertion the penalty can be execution because you said that you would put your life on the line for the safety of other people, and you did not. When given the opportunity, you did not live up to your promise.
Yeah.
I think firefighters and police officers should be held to that same standard, and that when you wear that uniform, you're saying, okay, I know if it comes down to me or you, I'm going to choose you. That's...
Yeah.
And a lot of officers do this. I mean, this is... and again, when you're talking about situations like this, these people are honored as heroes. When 9/11 occurred, who were the heroes of 9/11? Firefighters, police officers, volunteers who went into the building to save people and ended up dying or getting terminal cancer. Those are the heroes. Why would those be the heroes if... right? It's subjectively that we know that they had a choice, that they could have chosen themselves over other people, and they chose other people. That's admirable.
Yeah.
It's one of those things we do instinctually, and yet people who are arguing that morality is subjective, they would still applaud those people as heroes. And you're like, how can morality be subjective if everybody is saying those guys are heroes? It's just a given.
Yeah. Also, yeah, and and it's also with heroes and things like that. Like, there's even a bigger objective way to call someone a hero. Remember the people who were fighting to keep control of the planes when 9/11 happened from hitting the White House or the Pentagon.
Yeah, heroes as well. The was it Flight 93, I think?
Yeah, Flight 93.
Where the plane crashed and didn't crash into any structure. So the people who died were just the ones on the plane, yeah.
Yeah, it was just another example of there's no doubt that they're heroes.
Yes.
Like, and it's just...
And anybody who says they're not heroes, that person is in the wrong. That person is demonized, and rightfully so. That anybody who would say, "Oh, those weren't heroes; those were..." No, those Yeah, anybody who says they're not heroes is in the wrong. That's not subjective. Yeah. That is objectively in the wrong.
Yeah, like, you know, and by the time I started to come around the idea that morality is objective, it was because, like, that point, if you think it's subjective, you can't argue against something being
Oh,
immoral. It made
no.
a lot of sense. I was like, oh,
Yeah. So,
that makes a lot of sense.
And that's one of the situations I wanted to bring up today as I was thinking about this is, okay, gun control. People on the left say we need more gun control. People on the right say we need less gun control. Oh no, gun control is subjective. There is no correct answer. No, that's the argument people are making for morality. They're like, oh, people are arguing one way or the other, so there is no true answer. And like, there's a true answer for gun control because we can look at statistics and what is the likely outcome and compare. Oh, we both want X result. We have two different ways that we think we can get there. Only one of them is going to actually get us there. So that becomes objective.
Yeah.
So that's what people are excluding when they're talking about morality. Morality has a goal. Morality has the goal of the maximization of human life. Anything that is contradictory to the maximization of human life. Actually, I shouldn't say human life. I should say human well-being. So anything that contradicts human well-being overall is immoral. You think about human well-being, okay? Rape. Well, that diminishes somebody else's well-being. Doesn't add any well-being to the world. Okay, it's unnecessary suffering, and it detracts from the optimal well-being. Okay. Killing someone. Well, that removes somebody, that causes pain for their loved ones, has no benefit to the overall well-being of mankind. Okay, but here's an exception. That one person is trying to kill other people. Okay, then to the maximization of human well-being, ending the life of a murderer. Oh, that makes, right? If a murderer was going to... so let's say if we were able to quantify human well-being. If human well-being was at 100, murderer wanted to make that 98 by killing someone else and then continuing on a killing spree, or... Okay, but let me say maybe not 98. Okay, murderer wants to kill one other person, going from 100 to 99.
Yeah.
Okay, that's... And then that murderer stays alive and can take it to 98 if that's their intention. However, so no matter what, if the murderer proceeds, gets his kill, we go from 100 to 99. You kill the murderer, we go from 100 to 99. Oh, 99 is the highest possible number we can get in this scenario. But if the murderers are allowed to live, there's a possibility we could go to 98 and 97 and keep dropping if that murderer is allowed to keep doing what he's doing. That means killing the murderer will get us to the 99 without that potential of dropping below the 99. And if 99 is there, but people are like, oh, you shouldn't kill the murderer so that way we can stay at 100. Well, in this scenario, there's no way to get to 100. Either we kill the murderer and go to 99, or the murderer keeps on killing and we go below 99. That's... the only way to stay at 100 is if you could safely stop the murderer before he murders. That would be the ideal situation. Not always possible. If the murderer has the gun pointed to the other person's head, how can you stop him in time without killing him? That's just... If you tried non-lethal measures in that scenario, well, odds are the murderer is going to kill the other person. And then you're at 99 and the murderer is still out there that you have to deal with. It's... Ultimately, it is a cost-benefit analysis, but people are looking at one scenario and they're ignoring that other scenario. And that's why they're like, oh yeah, well this is inhumane and immoral to kill a murderer. And you're like, Well, if the alternative is worse, and we're picking the better of the two options, and there is no conceivable way or no feasible way to get a better option than the one we picked, then we picked the most moral option.
Yeah.
And that is, again, that's not an argument for capital punishment, because capital punishment, the guy has already been removed from the situation.
Yeah.
He's in prison already, not out murdering. Killing him after the fact, outside of the immediate necessity, doesn't make sense to me. Like, in a situation where it's the murderer or the victim, you want to eliminate the murderer. However, if you can contain the murderer, then you don't need to eliminate the murderer. It's like, oh, you're in this cage, we've got you locked away, you have no way of killing anybody else or causing damage to anybody else, but we're going to kill you anyway.
I mean, if they commit that type of crime in prison, then I'd see it as justified to execute them.
Yeah.
Like, or if the crime was so severe, like I'd say, like, if they pulled a Timothy McVeigh,
yeah,
I'd say it'd be justified. But yeah.
Yeah, but and the other side of that is the people have been falsely accused, people have been falsely, and we've gone over that in previous streams, where, so that's, I'm against capital punishment on the grounds that we might not have the right guy, and there's often times where we have it wrong, and there's other times where we're pretty sure we have the right guy, we think.
Yeah, like, you're like in practice against, like, are you philosophically and in practice against capital punishment?
Yes. Because I don't trust the government to get it right 100% of the time. And even a 99.9% or 99.99999% accuracy is not close enough for me. It would have to be 100%, yeah. You have to make sure that you could not possibly have gotten it wrong. And it's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the moral, and because I'm morally against it, I would also be practically against it, or I guess what was the other way you phrased it there?
Philosophically and in practice.
Yeah. So in practice, because it's philosophically immoral to kill somebody, even by accident or even with good intentions, if you incorrectly execute the innocent, that would be morally reprehensible. So therefore, we shouldn't do anything in practice that has even the potential to do something morally reprehensible.
All right. I mean, and with morality, like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's just because there's a few gray areas like that equals subjectivity. Yeah. Like when I mentioned earlier, abortion or capital punishment or things like that. Like, or there's some things that like euthanasia as an example. Like, I think you could argue that euthanasia
Who cares about young people in Asia? Bad joke. All right, sorry. Go.
I'm sorry, that's funny. But euthanasia, it's like, I think it'd be easier to argue that it's morally okay, rather, like, whether you think abortion's morally fine, it's easier to argue that, or I'll just say it, assisted suicide is more moral than abortion. But
yes, actually, there is no moral dilemma when it comes to assisted suicide.
Yeah, like, obviously, so long as it's like as long as the reason is that it's due to a terminal illness and there's no chance of it getting better.
Well, it comes down to when you're talking. So if you're starting from the position that each individual has their own individual right to life, no one else can take it away from them. But if somebody wants to end their own life, you can't stop them. Because if you stop them, you are saying, no, you don't have the right to your own life. We do. We tell you that you have to stay alive even if you don't want to. That would be overriding their individual right to life. They're saying, yeah, I have the right to life, you can't take it from me. but it's my right, and I can give it up if I choose. But somebody else saying, no, you can't give that right up. It has to stay there. You have to stay alive. That's denying that individual their right to choose their life, whether to keep going or not.
I mean, usually when the decision is made to commit suicide, the person's not in the proper state of thinking. Like,
so
it's also it's like like with people who have suicidal ideation. Like, I mean, of course, they're not going to be that way 24/7. And when some people who have survived it, like for instance, when it was some who jump off the San Francisco Bay Bridge,
and
they admitted that the moment their feet left the bridge, they already regretted it. And one guy said he was afraid that, people were never going to know that he regretted jumping, and he's a huge advocate against suicide and for suicidal prevention. And, but I get what you're saying.
No,
like,
so I need to clarify. I am in no way, sense, or form in favor of suicide. I have had 3 very close people to me commit suicide. It is not an answer. It's not the solution. It's not. But from the natural right to life, your choice. It's right. You get to choose what happens in your life. You are the one responsible for it. I can advise you not to commit suicide, not to do drugs, not to have premarital sex. I can advise you not to do those things, but you make the choice on all of those matters. You run your life. In that same instance, you get to choose when your life ends if you want to end it early. That's your choice. Like,
it makes a lot of sense. Like,
when you compare it to other choices, like, I can say, don't overeat, don't get overweight, eat healthy, exercise, but you can make the choice to eat very unhealthy and not exercise and then die early. Okay, that's a slow form of suicide.
Yeah, just like how I can encourage people not to drink and not to smoke, but the final choice is always yours. It's like, and a good analogy is the president has advisors, but that doesn't mean that he has to take the advice.
Yes.
Like JFK resisted the advice of his advisors when it came to the what's that issue called? It was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
Like, that's an example where he resisted largely what they were proposing.
Yeah. So you can offer people advice, but it's one thing to say this is how you should live, as opposed to you have to live this way or else. That's when things cross the line, right?
Yeah.
But that's what the euthanasia topic is. You have to keep on living or else what? Well, we're going to put your doctor in jail. We're going to put you in jail for trying to commit suicide. Or I don't know if that actually is a thing. Do they put people in jail for trying to...
They put them in mental institutions. I've never actually heard of a case where someone was arrested and put in criminal jail due to an attempted suicide.
Well, the doctors have gone to jail. Kevorkian went to jail. Yeah.
Yeah. Truth be told, a few years ago, I thought it was abhorrent that he did that. But looking back, it's like, I found it actually morally abhorrent that you would force somebody to live in misery. Like, if you have... In my state, physician-assisted suicide is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Any drug that could make their pain, like a terminally ill patient's pain, less severe, is illegal. And it's hilarious because, and also, I'm for decriminalizing suicide because what the hell are you gonna do? You're not gonna go to the graveyard and say you're under arrest and exhume the corpse, put it in handcuffs, and throw the body in the trunk. And
so the people who get criminalized, they're the people who tried and failed to commit suicide. You're like,
yeah, it doesn't help. Like,
that, I don't see how this helps. Yeah, this doesn't.
The only thing it helps them do is realize next time they try this, they're going to be successful.
Yeah, that's...
and
it doesn't seem we need to get this person help. It's like, oh, you did a bad thing. Bad. Don't ever do this again. No, that more likely than not will cause them Like, okay, not gonna let you find out about it next time.
Yeah, like, and also it's like I give advice to people all the time if they're feeling miserable or they're feeling sad. I think it's perfectly fine to give advice, but
Yes.
I always tell them this is my advice. This is where I stand. The final choice is yours. Like
Yeah.
if you had a gun to your head, and let's say I talked to you for 4.5 hours trying to convince you to put that gun down and advising you it's not a good idea, the final choice is yours. I can't
Yes.
force you to make the choice. Um, but I will also point out to people that whatever the choice is, the consequences fall on you.
Yes.
Me advising you doesn't necessarily mean I am liable or I am um, or I am in the wrong. But I mean, if they take
Well,
the
okay.
advice,
So
then you could get
even
involved to an extent.
let's flip this the other way around. What if you were encouraging them to pull the trigger? Would you be morally accountable? I would say no, because even though you were giving them what we would both consider bad advice, they made the choice. The person giving bad advice, sure, they are somebody you shouldn't listen to. They're not good counsel, obviously. But would they be held in, or would they be could we convict them of involuntary manslaughter or murder in the first degree for telling someone to pull the trigger? I would say no. In the same, because was the same, well, back when Eminem was a man before he had that transgender surgery to become a full body pussy.
Yeah.
When he was when he was taken to court, he's like, no, that's just a song. I mentioned these things. If people killed themselves because of that, that was their choice. You can't hold me accountable for it.
Yeah.
And he was correct. That is the
Yeah.
If someone said, and this is this is an area where a lot of people will disagree with me on this. If someone says, let's burn down the White House, and then people burn down the White House, but that person who said it didn't do it, I don't think you can hold that one person accountable. I think you can hold all the people who participated in the actual burning accountable. And this is an instance where, looking at Charles Manson, detestable person, I don't think he should be in jail for what he did, because the people who participated in the acts are ultimately responsible. Although I'd be glad to hear an argument holding him to the fire, but I don't think we can, because none of his actual actions participated in those events.
Did he provide like the murder weapons? Like if he provided,
If he provided weapons, then yes, he can be held accountable for that. If he provided them with like instructions, directions, okay, yes, he's now an accomplice.
I'd say it'd be conspiracy to commit murder.
Yeah.
Like if he just said,
so I think that is what he's in jail for, is the conspiracy to commit.
He's dead.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he died last year, and he
year.
was. Yeah, I think he was 83 or something. But yeah, he's dead.
Okay.
Yeah, but
still, I don't feel bad that he was in jail, but I don't think so. If in that particular instance, because it did seem like he was, so yeah, it wasn't just him saying this is what you should do. It was him facilitating the actual events. Okay, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in the same instance, if someone says, like, gas all the Jews to their pub, and then somebody goes out and gasses all the Jews, oh, we can't, like, the UK government would hold Count Dankula, like, look what your words did. Look what you did. You caused the death of the Jews that we hate, Israel. Wait, what?
Yeah.
It's your fault that all the Jews died, but fuck Israel. What?
Yeah, it was... Yeah. Honestly, like, I've seen the shit show that is politics in the United Kingdom, like, with them requiring a license to make a mixtape. It's like, can you imagine if you're trying to make a song and some cop walks up to you and he's like, yo, you got a license for that mixtape?
You're making an iPad or an iPhone or an iPod playlist. You got a license for that?
Like, oh my god. It's like,
dude, what is Spotify gonna do?
Oh god, what's SoundCloud gonna do?
Yeah, what are all the like? What is iTunes gonna do? Like, dude,
Yeah.
you got a license for that, iTunes kid?
Does HUMANE have a license to play the guitar in his videos now?
uh, well, I'm not in the UK, so thankfully that's not an issue for me.
Uh,
It's
I
yeah.
I did see that video of you playing the guitar.
Oh,
Sounded
which
pretty
one?
good.
No, it
I think it
didn't.
was called
It did not.
Ace. I mean,
Oh, it did not sound good. That was going back. I'm like, ooh, I wish I could just cut that out of it. It's oh
I used to play the ukulele and the tuba, so I think a guitar is better. Oh
no,
god.
yeah, it is very amateurish, and I've gotten better since then, but only slightly. No, Aspie is really good.
Oh
So I
yeah.
was So some of his earlier videos, I noticed that he was getting off tempo a bit, but his more recent stuff, I'm like, dude, spot on. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's like, with certain situations, it's like it is gray. Like there's some gray. Like
yeah,
there's some where
so
philosophically you might want to do one thing, but in practice you're like, I can't really do it that way, but I really want to.
yes,
Um, like where your back is against the wall, you're in a rock and hard place. Like,
yeah,
who do you save? Like, what do you do? Do you save your baby, or do you take down some sex criminal? It would be difficult. You'd
yeah,
want to save your baby, but at the same time, you do want to save people from being
yeah.
hurt. Um,
So in that situation, sometimes we can look back with hindsight and be like, okay, this would have been the best choice in that situation, but oftentimes that's operating with more information than that individual had at the time. And so when things like this go to court, like for instance, when a cop is okay, it looks like my partner is about to get shot by this guy. It looks like he's reaching for a weapon. I pull out my weapon and shoot, the suspect. He was unarmed. Okay. Officer did not know that at the time. It looked like a credible threat. It looked like it was putting his life and his partner's life at risk. He made the choice. It wasn't the best choice, because the best choice would have been not to shoot because the guy was unarmed. But the officer had no way of knowing that. So,
yeah,
but often people look at these situations, oh, he was unarmed. It's like another black man that was shot unarmed. And I'm like, the officer didn't know. You're operating off of information gained after the incident.
yeah. Like, and there's times where it's like, it does get gray with how to handle situations when,
Yes.
when there's like,
so the gray area comes from a lack of information.
yeah, yeah, lack of information or yeah, whether it's a lack of information or the circumstances and how it's presented, and
Yes.
sometimes falsehoods that are presented about the specific circumstance. Or I can even name a more specific example where people really get up in arms about. There was a dude, I think it was either in his own backyard or something, had a phone in his hand, and that's why they shot him, because they thought he had a weapon in his hand. And people were arguing that, it's proof of white supremacy running rampant in law enforcement due to the fact that this black guy who had a phone in his hand was shot by the police or something. Like, I mean, yes, the police. I do think there are times definitely where the police are not in the right, and I can even name instances from my home state where they were not in the right. And I think it could be objective to show, or at least, objective, that in a few cases where the cops should have definitely been charged.
Yeah. And as far as the unarmed black men being shot by cops, I was watching Owen Benjamin yesterday, and he was saying 20. 20 is the amount of black men who were shot, of unarmed black men who were shot by cops last year. 20 total.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an epidemic. Cops are racist. 20. It's not a good number. The number should be 0. But 20 is not the let's burn down our cities and this is a huge problem. Yeah. Nowhere, not the highest priority. There, and he started talking about other. You're more likely to die from being stung by a bee, poisonous insect.
Yeah.
If your odds are 20 out of 320 million, I think the odds are actually better that you would be struck by lightning twice while winning the lottery. I think. I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah.
It's not exactly that extreme, but it's not. If you're, oh my god, I'm an unarmed black man, I'm gonna die. If that is your fear, that is irrational as irrational as you can possibly be.
Yeah. When it's like there's also people lack a lot of nuances. Like I try to show, like, for instance, Owen crime statistics to kind of point it out about how, like which race commits more crimes. That's why they might police certain neighborhoods more. Fucking goes with the white supremacy card. It's like no.
Yeah.
No,
well,
it's like
okay.
Yeah, that's why it makes discussing.
And that's this situation that we're talking about right now. Again, since the topic is objective versus subjective, is objective because you can provide facts and evidence to support your position. If it was subjective, all of the facts and evidence that you're presenting are meaningless. Okay, you can have all those. It doesn't mean that cops aren't racist, because I think they are. That's a subjective mindset. And okay, I'll pull.
If it's not, like, that would suck. I did also look at the comments section of our climate change discussion, and that was a lot of fun reading that kind of mess between you and whoever that guy was.
We recommend using a stream bitrate of 4,500. I wonder if that's on my OBS or if that's... Yeah, okay, so it's back to good. But... Let me see, is that... anybody in the chat or anybody know anything about OBS? Because it's telling me on YouTube that they recommend a lower stream bitrate. Is that on my encoder, or is that on YouTube itself?
We'll look at the stream right now.
Yeah.
It's muted, and so far, from what I'm looking at, the stream seems to be in good health. Everything seems to be... the frame rate seems to be fine. Everything seems to be moving in order.
Yeah.
Like, you're dragging the mouse across your screen. It's moving smoothly.
Okay. Yeah. So I just want to... I think that might be on the OBS side. So let me see. Well, that might be something I'll have to fix for next time.
Yeah.
Well, I am actually moving this week, so that maybe by the time next Tuesday, that won't be an issue anymore. At least it shouldn't be. We'll see.
Yeah.
Never had any problems at my old place, and then now I'm kind of in a temporary apartment, but I'm moving to St. Louis next week, so living situation will completely change then.
Yeah. A quick question: do you think the spoiler myth is the spoiler talking point? Do you think it's a myth or not?
Wait, what do you mean, the spoiler talking point?
For instance, if a third-party person runs, they supposedly spoil the election for one of the two candidates.
No, that's...
Because that...
It's... So the only instance where a third-party candidate has ever mattered was Ross Perot.
Yeah.
That's the only time that third-party candidate had any impact whatsoever on the final outcome. And it could be argued that he lost the election for... who was that? Let's see, it was...
George H.W. Bush.
Yeah, it was George H.W. Bush versus...
Bill Clinton.
Clinton?
Yeah,
and Clinton won that one, right?
Yeah, so, but by a plurality. It was a very close one. Like, I see it like this. I think the statistics were Bush would have needed 65% of Perot's total vote to beat Clinton in the popular vote, and he needed... I remember how many states specifically, but I know it was at least more than 10 to win the electoral votes. Usually, and some people where it's like these third-party candidates, they get like a tiny piece of the the popular vote. It's like they would have either not, like if they hadn't voted, it's like people have this odd, they don't show correlation equaling a causation. Whether or not this candidate, if they wouldn't have participated, that the votes that they think would have gone to the losing candidate would have made them the winning candidate.
Yeah. Well, so the spoiler veto or whatever, or the spoiler vote, is assuming that the majority of the votes that went to Ross Perot would have gone to George H.W. Bush.
Yeah, even though statistics have shown actually that he siphoned
No.
votes from the two actually rather
Yeah.
equally.
Yeah, from both parties. So it's assuming that Bush would have gotten enough of those votes from Perot to make up for the votes that Clinton would have gotten from Perot. That does not seem all that likely.
Yeah.
It might have made the election closer, but I don't think it was quite enough to tip HW into winning.
Yeah. It's a shame that those people, that Bush family, didn't choose more unique names.
Yeah. The other problem that I think this effectively highlights a huge problem with our voting system in general. And this is when people are like, oh, we shouldn't have this three-party system because then you're not going to have a clear majority winner. And I'm like, why are we even doing the system in that way? Or at least, they're talking about, like, because, was it, like, Canada, or it might be the UK, that they have multiple parties, and then they vote on them all together, and then they take, like, the top two, and then they re-vote with the top two. And I'm like, why don't we do that? Why do we have to, like, oh, hey, there's 5 different parties, and we just pick the best of the 5? It's like, why isn't this kind of, like, tournament style? Like, okay, there's 5 candidates. Okay, those 2 got the lowest amount of votes. All right, now we're up to the top 3. All right, let's get rid of the third guy who didn't get enough votes, and it's just 2.
You heard of the blanket primary in California? Whoever the top two vote getters, regardless of party, advance to the general election.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but I kind of like it, actually.
Yeah,
if people,
I think if there are 3 or more candidates for president, it should operate in that same way. So that way you don't have the potential of that person stealing votes and upsetting the election. It's, well, okay. And the way things have been going right now with third-party vote turnouts, they might as well be knocked out. It's kind of...
Yeah,
right?
I just...
1% of the vote, 2% of the votes go to 3 parties.
Yeah, and someone called the Libertarian Party a threat or dangerous, and it's like, pick one. Either it's dangerous or it gets 1% of the vote. Well, 3% last time. Either you pick one. Is it either dangerous or did they get 3% of the vote?
I am not sure of the exact math, but I'm pretty sure even if the entire 3% of that vote had gone to Hillary, she still would have lost the Electoral College. Right?
She won 48% of the popular vote.
Yeah.
No one other than Trump or Hillary captured all the state's electoral votes.
But
like, she would have had, or if all the votes, because it seems like Johnson and Trump would be closer in terms of political views than Johnson and Hillary, because he's accused of being a spoiler.
Yeah.
I think Trump still would have barely by the skin of his teeth won the popular vote. And let's say you threw in Jill Stein's vote to Hillary Clinton, the plurality would be even smaller. It'd be 49% to it would be under 1% difference between the two. And people aren't entitled to someone else's vote. People aren't entitled to and it also just seems like you're trying to guilt trip someone. And I think California is going to break the 2-party system, actually.
The other thing is, if you were able to discount all of the illegal votes that went towards Hillary, then Trump won by a landslide, even in the popular vote.
I don't know.
There's not enough hard statistical evidence, but
it was alleged. They alleged
there was a lot of voter fraud. A lot. It's not in the thousands. It's 100,000s, if not maybe a few million. That's
like, that would be. She had 65. He had 62. I wouldn't say it would be a landslide, but it would. I would say that it would still be a plurality. If we consider all the percentages of the votes of all the candidates.
Well,
and you'd also like the electoral.
The estimates for the amount of illegal votes goes, like, the moderate estimates are in around 3 million.
Yeah. Like,
so
I would say
illegal votes. So these are votes either cast by dead people, cast for other people that the person either didn't vote.
Hey
and
guys,
voted
incredible naked 8 bitch here.
Naked 8 bitch. All right.
All right, but
Okay,
yeah,
and I do have to apologize to Aspie. I blew up on you in the chat. That was not should not have gone towards you. It should have been directed at a chair and aircraft because they were
It's
being
fine.
they
It's
were
fine.
being intentionally belligerent
yeah,
or
but
intentionally. I don't know. The belligerent may not be the word, but
It's just you get really passionate in your debates, and you start getting a bit over the top in my eyes.
yeah. That and in my own, but I'm seeing red and I'm like, wait, how can somebody possibly say this and legitimately believe what they're saying? It's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard, Chair. You're literally arguing that evil doesn't exist, but evil is wrong. How the Grr, how can evil not exist and also be wrong?
Vegan Gaines Jr. But yeah, I can't remember the point I was just about to make, but it's like, oh yeah, I personally, this may be subjective. How do you define a landslide? I'd say if you get at least 400 electoral votes, I'd call that a landslide.
Okay.
Like, if you get, I'd say if you get,
He wouldn't have been that far off because I've seen people putting estimates. Okay, if the estimated illegal votes were correct, and they discounted those, considering, and it was just kind of blanket across the board. The numbers are, I think Trump ends up winning an extra 3 states. Then but again, that's all estimates. It's very hard to track the total number of illegals. So not only are there people who are voting when they aren't registered citizens, there aren't legal citizens that end up casting a ballot. There's also people who are dead who get ballots casted for them. There's a large number of those still every year. And then there are people who cast votes for other people without the original person's permission. That's been
and everybody.
widely
Are we
documented.
talking about voter ID laws? Because I actually, when I was in when I was still a political science major, I did a presentation on a case called Marion County versus. I think it was like something versus Marion County. It was about a law in Idaho where you were Indiana.
Yeah.
Marion versus the Marion County Election Board, but something like that. And there was a case that involved the law where you were supposed to show an ID every time you go to vote, and it wasn't like and it wasn't strict at all. In fact, you could, if you had like a religious conviction against showing a picture of yourself, like the Jamaicans have, the Rastafarians have.
Really?
Yeah. You could actually go around the law, but they say, but some people were against it because it set a precedent. And there are some states who, like Alabama and Wisconsin, who put in like really strict voter ID laws where you have to show this and this and this and this and this and this.
So the Rastafarians don't agree with. Is it similar to the Aboriginals where they think that a picture is stealing your soul, or is it for different?
Yes, it's exactly like that.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, the Rastafarians believe.
The Rastafarians?
Yes, the Rastafarians do believe that.
And they're mostly from Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Jamaican them crazy by asking for that picture.
They've been smoking too much weed down there.
I can understand the Aboriginals. How do Jamaicans have that?
Yeah, the Aboriginals are kind of crazy. They slice up their dick.
Yeah. Aboriginals, like when you're talking about like a tribe that has not advanced at all since the dawn of humanity. Aboriginals, yeah, that's a pretty clear-cut example. I can understand why they would think taking a picture of someone is stealing your soul. Jamaica, like what? They've got skyscrapers in Jamaica, don't they? Or at least very
truth
very
is
tall.
sometimes stranger than fiction. Humane.
I was like, am I thinking of the wrong place? Jamaica is like a resort area, right? They've got like hotels and like automobiles and like.
It's a place where you go for coffee and weed, man.
They're not living out of teepees and walking around in loincloths in Jamaica.
It's
right?
a part of their faith. It's a part of their religion. Rastafarianism is it's a kind of an odd religion. They believe that the prince of Ethiopia was the Messiah.
I will have to look into that. That sounds interesting. I mean, it sounds completely
There's a whole movie
insane,
about
but
it. If you watch a
interesting.
Bob Marley documentary, you will learn all about it. Bob
Okay.
Marley was an odd guy too. He
Yeah.
actually had I mean, he was happily married, but he had a lot of kids outside. He had a lot of outside kids.
I don't know if that can be considered a happy marriage. Doesn't
she
sound
was
too
okay.
happy to me
They were
if
okay.
he's leaving the marriage to go have sex with other women.
His wife didn't care. She still loved him though. She really didn't care about it. It's kind of a complicated thing, but
She's a cut queen then, I guess.
yeah. It's kind of a.
Well, I
She's
think it
still
would be more
alive.
of a cuck if she enjoyed watching her husband have sex with other women. But still, it's on the edge of cuck.
Yeah.
I saw a meme that Lonely Wolf posted. It says like after sex selfies are all over the place. It showed like a cardinal next to a little girl with like cancer, and it showed like a picture of Justin Trudeau standing in front of a bed where after his wife had just had sex with another guy, and there's another picture of a woman sitting next to a dead body with a cigarette in his mouth. It's just Lonely Wolf has some of the dankest memes I've ever seen.
Yeah, but
Disturbing.
what would you define as a landslide, HUMANE? Like whether it's electoral or popular vote wise?
Oh, I thought a landslide was anything over 3%. Right?
I don't know if there's
thought
any
that was
sort of like formal definition of a landslide when it comes to electoral votes.
I think it just means overwhelmingly. Like a majority is of course like 50%. A plurality is just getting the most if it doesn't make a majority. So like if there's a three-way race and let's say HUMANE gets 37% of the vote and
I guess it is.
You know,
I thought it was a percentage, but apparently it is a very vague, overwhelming supermajority.
I would say
what's an overwhelming supermajority?
I'd say if you get like close to 60%, I'd say it's a landslide. If you got like a really huge percentage of the vote, like
60% would be way more than a landslide because
60. Although I would think a landslide.
That means the other person was at least 20%
75%
below you,
or at least 60% does sound like a landslide.
Yeah, like
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what would you call? But here's a better question. What would you call a close call? Like,
I'd say if the percentage of the difference in vote, it's like if it's less than 1%. Or if it's less than 5%,
well, actually,
I'd say it's close.
If it's less than 1%, it's just within the margin of error, right?
Yeah, like like.
So there's a chance that they won not because of they got more votes, but because the votes were counted incorrectly, or because I mean, usually with these sorts of things there is a 5 to 1% margin of error.
Yeah, right? Like if you look at Florida and how they had voting irregularities and shitty methods of casting the votes in 2000, it's like, people still wonder would Gore have won the state had they done something different. But I looked at how close it was. Like when they show the percentages of the votes, like 48.847% to 48 point. I'm gonna have to look at it again because I can't remember shit.
Okay. Yeah,
but I just find it fascinating. Yeah, but yeah,
we've derailed a bit away.
I mean, this is a point of subjectivity as to how you define certain things.
Yeah,
like
I didn't realize that landslide was subjective. It's apparently up to whoever thinks it's a landslide. I thought it was a set number, but I cannot find anything about a set number.
Subjective and objective. Anybody who can say that anybody who thinks that morality is subjective, you should go on the Tor web browser and just look around in the.
The deep web and the Mariana Trench of the web. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the worst.
So deep web is anything that is not a registered name on the internet. So
website. It's not a. It's a non-mainstream website. Okay. You can't.
Which means up on Google. Yeah, you can't look it up on Google. You can't look it up on any regular search engine. It exists as an IP address. There is no name associated. So if you type in google.com, google.com goes out to a naming register It's from the IC. Is it ICAAN or is it just ICAN? The it goes out to a database, and that database says, okay, Google.com equals 1.6, or is it? I think it's 168.192. It's it translates it to an address, and then your computer or your browser goes to that address. The deep web is anything where there is nothing to translate that address into a English phrase, or www dot whatever.
It's basically, and the reason why it's not registered is because half the time it's not legal, or it's just so obscene that nobody would want to, that no company would want to associate with it. Like you have cannibalism sites, child porn sites. You have like, just if you can think of it, it's on there.
If you can think of it, it's not half as bad as what is actually on the deep web.
Yeah.
That's
child rape, torture. It's there. It's
the worst things that people can do, and worse, end up on the deep web. Now, the deep web also has some legitimate things. That was where the Silk Road was operating. Legitimate as in not everything is the absolute worst. There's also people who are just trying to stay off the grid. I mean, they're still technically on the grid, but they're just trying to keep on the down low. People who are afraid of being hacked, people who are afraid of invasion of privacy and stuff like that. They also operate on this deep web, and so what they'll do is they will get an IP address for their website or their server, and then they will tell other people what that server address is, and then people directly contact that server address. So if I'm operating a server, I have the exact IP address. I tell you and Aspie. You and Aspie are the only people who can find my website. No one else, because no one else knows what that address is.
Really? If you can't find an IP address, how does the Tor web browser work?
The Tor web browser works by hiding what that IP address that's being sent is. So that's why the icon for Tor is an onion. So what it does is it takes the IP, or it doesn't take just the IP address. It takes your IP address that you're operating on, sends it to a hub, where it changes, where it surrounds that IP address with another IP address, and then now the IP address of that hub is sent out to somewhere else, sent out to another hub. The IP address is surrounded again, and now the hub sends out to other hubs. And it keeps bouncing around until it's in layers and layers. And so now the only thing people can see is the last layer, or the last IP address that was added on top. They can't see the start of it. And so now it looks like just traffic going from one hub to another hub to another hub. And it's impossible to know, wait, is this the same message I was tracking from the beginning? Or did it go, or is it, because now you're starting to see, okay, it went to this hub. I know it went to that hub. Oh, crap. Now there's three leaving that hub. Which one of those was the one I was tracking to begin with? Okay, now I'm tracking those. This one went to that hub, that one went to that hub, that one went to that hub. Oh, crap. Now there's 5 leaving each of those hubs. It's an infinite game of 3-card Monty. And in order to trace it all the way back to the beginning, it's very difficult to do. No, and as far as what I was saying about my website sending you that IP address, people can look through all the possible IP addresses. It's like some trillion.
Russian roulette.
No, it's 3-card Monty. It's 3-card Monty, but so you know what 3-card Monty is, right?
No, I don't know.
So
what that
3-card Monty is usually it's played with 3 queens, and so it's played with the Queen of Spades, Queen of Clubs, and the Queen of Hearts, and you're trying to find the Queen of Hearts, and they will take the cards and they'll mix them all together so you can't tell which one is on top, right? So they'll mix them all because they're all same backs, and they'll mix them around, and so you're like, okay, one of these is the Queen of Hearts, and you're trying to track it as it's moving back and forth, and you're like, okay, I could only see the red or blue back of the card, and I couldn't see the face, and I'm trying to figure out, well, it moved from left to right, and then it moved back to the right, and then it moved to the left. Which one of these 3 is it now? But Tor browser is a bit like 3-card Monty on top of 3-card Monty. So it's like 3-card Monty is going on a table, and then they take a lid, or no, I guess maybe a canvas, and put it over the table where 3-card Monty is going on, and then they start shuffling games of 3-card Monty. I don't know if that, so it's shuffling, and so you're like, okay, how can I possibly track where that went? Because it could be any one of these number. Let's see, what's a better way? Is there another?
So is that how people buy drugs?
The Silk Road was
not
where
to
people bought drugs.
Yeah. Also,
So-
there's a lot more in the deep web.
Okay,
and
so
it's some stuff
to
that I'm
get
not
on
gonna
the
talk
deep,
about.
to get on the deep web, it just means that your IP address is not associated with a name. It's so like Amazon.com actually equals some random, I think it's 12-digit number. Like you can actually look those up, like Amazon.com IP address, IP lookup. Let's see.
Yeah, and the thing about those the FBI, they always try to track down those child porn sites. When they shut down one, they just pops up.
Yeah,
again.
just pop up because all they have to do is change the IP address. They don't even have to shut down this. It could be the same server with a different address.
Yeah. And this is true. When there is no consequences, people become sick monsters. When there's no social standards, well, there's no social boundaries.
Okay, so if you type in who is and then look up Amazon.com, this is a bit what it's talking about. So it tells you the domain is Amazon.com. The registrar is Mark Monitor Inc. So the registrar is the person who owns that domain. The domain is the English translation that you use to search in Google or Bing if you're an idiot. And what it translates to, so there are named servers, right? So they've got, there's supposed to be an IP address in here or a list of IP addresses.
Damn, and I was thinking my memes were like the bottom of the internet, so it goes deeper than that.
It goes way deeper than that. Because I know there is an IP address. I'm trying to figure out where it is.
Lonely Wolf, I just want to say, if you want to know how sick the deep web can be, just imagine like the worst thing that can possibly ever exist. Imagine that, multiply it by like 1,000, and then give it a website. That's
yeah.
The deep web.
So I guess
it's kind of like a library, and then all of a sudden you pick up the Marquis de Sade, and that's kind of like, okay, this is the deep web of the library.
Yeah, so I guess Amazon doesn't have an IP address name server, but they do have the names of servers, and this name, ns1.p31.dynec.net, that is a physical machine on the internet, and there's not going to be two of those. You're not ever going to find ns1.p31 blah, 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 that belongs to someone other than Amazon. That is their name and their machine. That may be like a what's that called? That may be the name of their firewall. So that .net address, that might take you to the Amazon's internal firewall, and then depending on how you're entering that firewall, Amazon's firewall may take you to the individual machine address that you actually need to in order to search their website and stuff like that. So I know when I registered my domain name, it went to the actual physical IP address because I don't have that extra layer that Amazon would have.
Yeah.
So let's see.
So how it works is somebody sets up a server in like some very isolated location, and then they create an IP address, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, because my registration for Funfair, it actually has the main IP address, and then it's got time zones, it's got the name of the So it's got a host name, target name, IP address, other domains that will take you to that same IP address, who registered it, where they registered it. So in order to get on the deep web, they didn't go through that process. They didn't register a domain. They just put the server and then connected that to the internet. So in order to find that server, you have to know that address of the machine, the name of the machine. You have to know.
You know what's creepy? You know what's creepy is that I once saw a video of a guy who actually went on the Tor web browser and actually surfed the deep web live, and he came across a website where they were selling hacked PayPal accounts, and he left the website after only like a few minutes because he was that freaked out. He was like, "Dude, I can't be here."
If you like I said, it's not all just the evil, morbid stuff. There's also just criminal activity, and then there's people trying to hide their privacy. That's why they made Tor ultimately illegal, because it was being primarily used by criminals and degenerates.
Well, you can still get it on the App Store.
So, the Marianas Trench is a part of the deep web where even a Tor browser cannot be used to find it. Because Tor browser works slightly different from like Google and all that sort of thing. It's actually a separate install, right? It's not like an extension to your Chrome browser or anything like that. It's not just going to bing.com and then searching from there, or going to google.com and searching from there. It's its own separate search engine. There are registered deep web addresses in Tor, and there are ways of finding those addresses using Tor. But Marianas Trench is the stuff that not even your Tor can find. And that's the stuff where so that's more along lines where you have to know the exact IP address or the exact machine name.
It's frankly stuff that you don't want to go see.
No, I don't know. So I've heard of the Marianas Trench. I've never seen anything that's actually on it, because I don't know how you would know to look for anything on it. As far as I know, the Mariana Trench may just be a theoretical concept and not an actual thing, because of like, how can these... Yeah. But I would say that's probably more for criminal masterminds and stuff like that, because we all know actual criminals, they do their stuff on the regular web. Like, the regular criminals, they do their stuff on Facebook. Right? They do their stuff on Facebook and Patreon, and you're like, yeah, those guys are dumb.
You know, Belandris, you know that black YouTuber was actually, there's a black YouTuber called Blasphemous, and he was responding to a deep web story told by somebody, and he says in this story, a guy found a friend of his sent him a link, and he went onto it on the Tor web browser. It was these four guys playing. It was these four Chinese guys playing Russian roulette. It was a freaky thing. Yeah. But I think that's like only scratching the surface of what's on there.
I don't know. So another aspect about the Marianas
Everybody
Trench,
just went all silo.
Yeah. So the deep. Okay, one of the reasons that the deep web is also kind of not on the regular internet is because Google and Bing and all of these major search engines, Wolfram Alpha, they have what's called web crawlers. Those will go to an individual page, and they'll find all of the different links and all of everything that website links to, and they will use that to find more information. And they will document everything that is linked from links, and it'll build this whole chain of, okay, from this one web page, you can get to this page, and that page, and this page, and that page, and they'll build this list. With things on the deep web, usually it's one page is linked to one page, if that, and then it doesn't go there's no more links. There's no huge chain of this will link to that, to that, to that, to that, to that. So it's a lot harder for search engines to crawl through and say, okay, I found this one web page, and it's not connected to anything. It doesn't link to anything. It doesn't. There's no about page. It's just this one single page. It's not. It's less connected than the interweb, because the interweb, you go to Amazon.com, and then there's links all over the pages, there's advertisements, there's all kinds of things you can click on that take you to other pages. But with the things on the deep web, typically, if they want you to stay in that one. And in the Marianas, the Marianas Trench would also have that same thing, so there is no web crawling for either of those, or at least not to the same extent. Because I think Tor browser, part of what it was doing was a bit of web crawling, and so once it did find a page, or once you have gone to a page, it would look to see if that page connected to any other sources, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, but although I've seen some creepy pastas which are pretty freaky, but anyway,
so,
have you ever seen? Keep going.
Oh, no, I was just about to say, trying to get us back to the main topic here of subjective versus objective.
So what do you mean by subjective and objective? Obviously, there are certain things, there's physical objects which are not, subjective.
Well, that's what Cher was trying to argue.
2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4.
That is objective. Yeah. Another thing that is objective, okay, I've got a little prop, so it doesn't matter what this is. What matters is this exists, right? I guess that's what I should start with. I'm telling you this exists. And from what you can see, does this exist? That's not a rhetorical question. It's just I'm just looking for a yes or a no.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you a question? Do you think there's a connection between the subjective and the object? In the objective between the tangible and the intangible?
No, if something is tangible, it can't be intangible. Those are two opposite meaning...
but from that objective thing, like, people make subjective opinions about that thing. Like, they might say, this is an object, and then people have subjective judgments about that object. So
that's what I'm about to get into. So I think all three of us would agree that this thing that I'm holding exists. Now, yes. I could measure this side and measure it as 2.1 inches. You could measure this and get 2 inches. Okay. Well, that's because you're measuring it with the size of your penis, but still, you got 2, I got 2.1. And we could both argue about, no, it's 2.1, and you could say, no, it is 2, I got 2, and we could argue about that. But that would be the subjective part of it. What is objective is this has a fixed length. It's not like the length changed when I measured it to make it 2.1, and then when you measured it, it changed to 2. No, it has it's not expanding, it's not lengthening or shrinking, depending... Shrinking? That's not the right word. Lengthening or shortening? Yeah. Depending on who measures it. It's not like Aspie is going to come along and measure it and get 6, right? 6... Maybe he'll get 20.5. What we should all conclude is we're using different measuring or different standards for measuring, and maybe
somebody's using feet
incorrect.
And somebody's using the metric system.
Okay, so actually with the metric system, this is like what 8.5 centimeters or something like that. Now I'm gonna use inches just because I know this is 2 inches in length.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose this particular object. It's 2 inches long, but I could measure and get 2.1. And you could measure and get 2. And somebody else could measure and get 2.05. But we would understand if we're getting different measurements, it's a problem with what we're using to measure. It's not a problem with the object changing size. The object has an objective length. We may disagree on what that length is, but we understand there is a correct answer. It has a length that is correct. And the way that we could come up with experiments to figure out who was more correct than the others. And so what we could do is we could find something else that we know is exactly 2 inches long, set this next to it, and see if this is slightly larger or slightly smaller. If it is the exact same size, then we know, okay, those who measured 2.1, your measuring instrument is incorrect. Those who measured 2.05, your measuring instrument is incorrect. That's how we would So that is the something that is objective. We might think that there's or we might disagree on what it objectively is. That doesn't change its nature, and that's what Chair tried to argue. Is like, oh, if you exist in a room and I'm not looking at you, you could either exist or not exist. I'm like, that's not how this works.
Is that the Schrodinger's cat thing?
That's what he was trying to argue, and I'm like, no. What Schrodinger's cat is talking about is we don't know the state of the cat. The cat could either be alive or dead, and we won't know until we observe it. We aren't changing the actual state of the cat. We're not saying, oh, we observe it, and by observing it, we killed it. Or we observed it, and by observing it, we gave it life. That is preposterous. But that is what Chair was trying to argue, and I'm like, that...
It's, the problem with that, like, looking back at it, I just think we don't need to be... I think we're being a bit too harsh on each other, because it's kind of hard, like, in those DM things, it's very hard to actually get it right, because, you know, you're scrolling up and down looking for things, and it's...
and usually I'm responding to something that's, like, you know, 4 or 5 posts back, and I haven't caught up to the most recent one.
It is, it's not an easy, and it's not out of, like, ignorance, or I don't think anyone's out of sort of ignorance or sort of...
No, Chair was being intentionally...
I mean, it's more the case that, it's better off clarifying things probably in a spoken form, because you can respond there on the spot.
Maybe you and Chair should have a stream together.
Nah, he's already said that he will not stream with me because he says that I am an overly emotional, crazy person, and I'm like, that's because you keep saying things that are outright false, and when I call you out on it, you weasel out of it. You say that, oh no, what I meant was this, and I'm like, no, there's no other way of interpreting what you said other than my interpretation of it. You're changing the narrative because I called you out on it. I proved you wrong, and then you're trying to change the narrative to make it seem like you weren't wrong. That's what Chair intentionally or continually was doing. That's why I was getting so angry. Because I was asking, does evil exist? And he's like, oh, well, you got to define evil, and I defined evil. And then he said, well, that's, I forget what his response was. I don't know the exact wording of it, because that was all cleared out. Let me see. He was saying that's what evil is according to you. And then he responded by saying something along the lines of what was essentially the argument that morality is subjective, therefore morality is subjective. And I'm like, what? He didn't say it in those exact words, but that's what people like Chair do. They state something with one way of phrasing it, and they state it in the opposite way of phrasing it, and act as if they'd said something. And I'm like, that doesn't prove morality is subjective. You're just restating your original thought. If I say morality is subjective because subjective things... wait.
Yeah. Can I say something about Chair? I think he's a little... I think he can be a little bit hard-headed because, you know, he's in defense of pornography, and he doesn't believe pornography is all that bad in moderation. But Aiden Paladin did a video. I think she did 2 videos about pornography, showing that pornography is not good for you. It's not. And while she clarified something, she actually said, "I hate to agree with the religious right on something, but they're right on this one." I mean, during the things they were talking about, you know, in the 1980s when they were having conferences talking about their data, they were having debates on whether or not it should actually be legal for pornography, whether it should be legal because they showed it was that bad for people. It desensitized people towards logical and necessary social standards aimed towards sex. Things that if we got rid of those, they would be our society would ultimately slowly break down. And it's breaking down now. But then she says that this is this is just it also hurts men. It causes men to they're not as what's the word for it commit. Men are not as willing to commit. And she showed miles and miles and miles of data. And then Chair's response was, I was really disappointed in Aiden's video, and I'm just like, what else did you want her to show you?
Well, it's because what she said contradicted his ideology, and that was that video that started this whole dispute between me and Cher and talking about this issue and bringing it back to morality and subjectivity. I agree. Like, Aiden Paladin laid out an amazing argument, and she correctly, or at least, so this is where correctly is subjective, because I don't know if this is the objective answer, but as far as I can see, it looks like she has the right position on this, because she says it is bad for you, but I don't think we should ban it by law. I don't think we should have any kind of...
I agree with that. Let people figure out themselves how bad it is for them. Because I think back in the 1980s, the porn actually awards were actually really big. There were like thousands of people who would go to it. Now there's like very few. I think people are starting to realize how bad this stuff is for you, and people are slowly starting to cut it out of their lives, or maybe they just don't care about it as much anymore. Maybe it just kind of slipped to the back of their minds. But either way, I have a feeling that people are eventually going to realize, wait a minute, this is not good for us. This is... And I remember I said something, I commented below Aiden's video. It was like, I said hashtag Christians were right. And an atheist below said, yes, you were right about this. But here's the problem. Christians could never show what's the word for it, secular reason why something is bad. All they say is, oh, God says it's bad, so it must be bad. But and I do kind of agree with this. If you're going to bring up the Bible, you have to bring up a real reason why this is banned, or why the Bible reacted to this behavior in this manner, and why this law was instated. And also I think I have an argument of why in the Old Testament people sexually deviant behavior such as bestiality and all those behaviors were banned. People caught doing this were sent to death. I mean, I'm not going to talk about it now, but I think it was because the Jews saw something in the Egyptians, because in the book in Leviticus 18, it said, the first thing it says, do not do what the Egyptians or the people who are occupying Israel are doing right now. Don't do these behaviors. And it goes through like a whole bunch of sexual behaviors. And it says, do not do these. Like, the Bible does not single out homosexuality as like uniquely evil. It points to everything, incest, bestiality, homosexuality. It's all equal in the eyes of God, essentially. And I think there's a reason why they and here's my reason why. There's a scientist back in the gold rush days who found a way of helping men survive cholera. Because what would happen with cholera is that you would get diarrhea and you would eventually dehydrate and you would die. However, he found out that if you can manage the symptoms, it's the symptoms that kill people. So if you can manage the symptoms, you can survive. And I think that's essentially what it did. I think it was like all these sexually deviant behaviors were a sort of reflection of a morally degrading society. So in order to maintain, and of course with these ancient civilizations where they were a lot more unstable than what we are, it required a strict set of rules in order to remain a stable community. And of course, they have. I mean, have you ever heard of the Moabites today? They don't exist.
No. There's a lot of tribes that are mentioned back then, and we've got at least what we think are artifacts and archaeological digs that are those particular tribes that are described. We can't know for sure because not much is mentioned about them and that sort of thing. But yeah, they're no longer around. Their descendants. There's only two major tribes that we know of that were in the Bible that have continued on to modern day. The Jews, and what was the Philistines. The Jews are now still the Jews. The Philistines their descendants went on to form what we know as the Arab region. That a lot of Arabs can trace their lineage back to.
Yeah, and it all paints down to these very strict rules that were placed upon these societies. I do have to go,
so we don't have much time here. So I just I think I've covered everything that I wanted to as far as the subjective versus objective, except the definitions. I did not bring those up, so Oh, because that was
Yeah.
the one that pissed me off the most about what Cher was saying.
All right, I need to go now because my dad. We got to go pick up our motor home so we can go. So I can go to Oklahoma this weekend. It was nice talking to you all. Bye.
All right, bye. Because I pulled up subjective. Was it the Oxford English Dictionary? No, it was No, was it objective or was it Oh no, I was looking up exist. That's what it was. There it is. Okay. Whoops. Did everybody leave? Alright. So let's see. Okay. So, not sure if you can see that. But he was saying, so I've got exist pulled up here, having objective reality or being, because I was talking about does evil exist, because I was trying to make my argument for morality being objective, and I said does evil exist, because if evil exists, then it is objective, and if evil is objective, then morality, which talks about what is and is not evil, has an objective basis. And it cannot then become subjective if it's based on an objective fact of... It's the same thing like saying, if I ask, does gravity exist? And somebody says yes, and then we try to figure out what the force of gravity is or what are the measurements, it's still set in the objective that this force exists. So if evil exists, it's just a matter of figuring out what evil exactly entails. Which actions are evil and which actions are not. Those actions that are evil would be immoral. Those actions which are not evil would then be good. It's an objective grounding for morality. So, and he wouldn't agree that evil exists. And then for some reason, I don't know if you can see this no object part, he was saying that meant that the exists could not apply to a concept like morality because it says no object. And then I was showing him that's not what that no object is talking about. Because swim, no object. Huh. And let's see, what's I think this, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, carry with object. Huh. Yeah, so what he was saying that with object and no object meant completely different from what this dictionary is actually referring to. Because with carry, in order for carry to be a verb, you have to carry something. Whereas exist doesn't need an object. Carry requires an object. And you'll see all these examples. This train service carries 20,000 passengers. She had carried the secret. Ticks can carry. You can't just say, he carried. That, he carried what? He exists. Doesn't need an object. It's a fully expressed idea. He carried, not a fully expressed idea. That's, he swam, fully expressed idea. He swam water, doesn't make any sense. You don't, if you add an object after swam, doesn't make any sense. He swam the ocean, okay. That's explaining where he was doing the activity, not required for that to be a verb. carry does not make sense without an object. That's why it says in these little brackets, with object, but the other two words I talked about, no object. No object at the top, but oh, look, here's an example with object. She swam the channel. Oh, that's what that's referring to, Chair, you freaking moron. You're telling me that I don't understand dictionaries because I used exist with morality, or with evil. You're trying to tell me that I don't understand what a dictionary means when it says, if evil exists, therefore evil has objective reality or being. You agreed that evil existed, you did not agree that evil was objective. That makes no sense. You're saying evil exists, but evil isn't objective, when the definition of exist contains the word objective, and then you tried to refute it by saying, oh, but that says no object. You're using the dictionary incorrectly. That's because Chair is a freaking idiot. Yeah, anyway. That's my thoughts there. I just wanted to, and I'm going to end the stream on that with, yes, Chair is a moron. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I pointed that out to him in the chat, and he was continually telling me that I didn't know what the meaning of subjective was, I didn't know what the meaning of objective was, and that I didn't know how to use a dictionary. And then he wonders why I'm upset with him when he is intentionally misunderstanding the way that you interpret that dictionary and what that dictionary is saying. Because I showed him in the chat, look, exist, no object underneath there. And then I showed him swam, and he's like, yeah, but swam's a verb. And I'm like, so is exist, you stupid. I want to... And I want to say something, be very, very mean, but very, very accurate about Chair and his chair. I'm going to show at least some restraint, and maybe if Chair gets on my nerve again, I will say it in the chat, because, I guess it's mean and insensitive to talk about a guy who's in a wheelchair, and maybe that's what he's been going through his entire life, is he's got this victim complex, and he's like, oh, well, nobody can say anything bad. I don't think he's ever been confronted because people feel sorry for him, and I don't feel sorry for him because he is a dick. He is an idiotic dick. So I have no sympathy for his physical condition, and he can't use that as a shield against being an idiot. So that's not the mean thing I was refraining from saying. I have said something similar. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I already started this. So, I was talking about vaccines on Twitter with Ham, and Ham was talking about protecting children from their parents, and equated a parent beating the crap out of their child with someone who didn't want their child to be vaccinated. And my response was that, yeah, someone who is gay and will never have kids would think that beating up their child is the same thing as not wanting their child to have a vaccination. I don't know if those were my exact words, but that was the idea expressed. And I think yeah, leave it to someone who isn't going to have kids and cannot know the relationship between a parent and a child in the same way, to think that those two things are equal. One parent doesn't want what's best for the child. The other parent may want what's best for the child and may have chosen incorrectly. You cannot say that a parent who beats the crap out of their kid loves their child, and the parent who loves their child in the same way that a parent who wants what's best for their child and thinks what is best is not vaccinating them. You cannot put those two together and act like they're the same thing. But leave it to a person who has no intention of ever having children of their own to think that they know what parents truly desire. Yeah. Anyway, so I was going to say something similar about Chair's condition. I am refraining from now, unless Chair continues to be the utter dick that he is. Alright. And on that note, that's a step too far and has nothing to do with subjective or objective, but I think I have proven We haven't even gotten to whether morality is subjective or objective. I've just been talking about the concept of subjective and objective. And subjective, which I pull up, did I? Dang it, I do have to go. But while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to quickly pull up the definition of that. And I'm not just going to use one, I'm going to use several of them. Okay, so is that showing up on the... Okay, so subjective, of or relating to or constituting a subject. Let's see, that's not quite the definition we're talking about when we're talking about morality and not. Yeah, definition 2, of or relating to the essential being of that which has substance, qualities, attributes, or relationships. Again, that's not quite. That is talking about a physical object. Okay, characteristic. A characteristic of or belonging to reality, or perceived rather than as independent of mind. That seems a little closer. So relating to or being experience or knowledge as conditional by personal mental characteristics or state. That's a little bit closer to something that is relevant when we're talking about whether yeah. So compare objective. So yeah, this definition 3 is a little closer to what we're talking about when we're talking about subjective versus objective. Although this particular dictionary doesn't have examples of it used in a sentence. So I'm not a real fan of this. So let me... And... Oh. Sorry. Before I do that, 4. Particular to an individual. Particular to a particular individual. Oh. Okay, that can be applied when we're talking about subjective versus objective. Subjective judgments, modified or affected by personal views. Oh. Experience or background, a subjective account of an incident. Oh, that's another example. So, this is so we're talking about the crime statistics and all that sort of thing. This happens a lot during actual criminal proceedings, where someone will describe the events and their description of the events doesn't match reality. That's because their description of the events is subjective. It's modified by their personal views or experience. And the reason we know what actually happens is by the evidence. And if the criminal court cases were allowed to be subjective, then the person's testimony of what was going on would take precedence over the evidence collected by the analyst, by the CIS, the crime scene investigators guy. CSI, yeah, not CIS. So a subjective account of an incident. Oh, yeah, subjective account of an incident doesn't change. So let's see. So for instance, these body cam footages where the subjective account from that one lady was that the cop was being racist and pulled her over because of the color of her skin, and was being mean to her and threatened to haul her off to jail. And the subjective account from that NAACP leader was that the cop was pulling him over for being racist, even though the body camera footage proved that the cop pulled him over for not using a blinker, I believe was the situation. Didn't use his blinker. The cop stated that. The guy agreed with it. And then the guy pulls out registration that isn't the registration for the vehicle he's driving. And the cop gives him a warning and is completely polite. But that particular person, their subjective account of the story was nothing like what the body camera actually showed. The body cam, in this instance, was objective, and the incident was objective. Therefore, his subjective opinion doesn't frickin' matter. The evidence of the body camera footage and the objective facts of the incident overruled his subjective opinion. Alright. So... Man, I do have to go, though. I am going to be late. So I am not using this word incorrectly as as those other guys have said. So, another definition of subjective: existing in the mind, belonging to the thinking subject rather than the object of thought. And it's opposed to objective. Belonging to the thinking subject. This means the person who is thinking about the object rather than the object that they are talking about. Pertaining to or characteristic of an individual. That doesn't quite apply when you're talking about morality. Placing excessive emphasis on one's own moods, attitudes, opinions, etc., unduly egocentric. And this is what is said by facts don't care about your feelings. That is saying the facts of the situation are objective. You are trying to make them subjective by putting your own personal spin on it, by your own mood, your own attitudes, your own opinions. Now, if morality is objective, then morality doesn't care about your own moods, attitudes, opinions, etc. It is based on logic and the foundation that evil exists, whether regardless of your mood, your attitude, your opinion, the way that you think, your individual perspective. Evil exists. If evil exists, morality is objective. You can't use this. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see if I can get one more definition and then I'll go. So they keep telling me I'm using the definition of subjective incorrectly, and I've pulled up 3 different dictionaries that not all of the definitions apply to what I'm talking about, but then not all the definitions apply to all situations or all instances of the use of a word. Okay, subjective, based on or influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions. Who was using subjective correctly and who was using subjective incorrectly? Based on these 3 definitions, it's still me. I'm using them correctly. They're using them incorrectly because they told me that something can be subjectively objective. That something can exist and be subjective. Contrasted with objective. Yeah. His views are highly subjective. There's always a danger in making a subjective judgment, depending on the mind of the individual. Yeah. 100% I'm using subjective and objective correctly. They're accusing me of not using it correctly. I think I win. And on that note, I do have to go. Don't know why that. Alright, I've been here too long. Thanks for anybody who did stick around in the stream, but I do have to go.